Okay. All right, so 1.2, so we're at 4b, and I'm giving j negative 3, 3, and k, which is 5, 1. Those are the 2 points that I'm going through, and I want the equation of a line that passes through. Again, I'd like to go off on a tangent here. What if they had said, you want an equation that would be perpendicular to the line that goes through these 2 points? Perpendicular. Well, your strategy would have still been the same essentially, except for when you find your slope, you're going to find the negative reciprocal and then plug that into your equation and rewrite it. Okay, so you have to be very careful with the wording. How is this worded? Okay, so we have finding the slope of jk. That would be y1. Let's put this down first, the negative, right, from our formula. So y1 minus y2, x2 minus x1. So y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. And so that would be negative 2 over 5 plus 3, that's 8, which reduces to negative 1 over 4. Okay, so you have to make sure you get that. So choose, which one are you going to choose, right? I'm going to choose J, right? So then you plug it in, you go y minus 3 is equal to negative a quarter x plus 3, right? We're going to rewrite it in general form. So times this by 4, this by 4. Why are we doing that? Because there's a fractional slope here. And so that's 4y minus 12 negative x minus 3. Remember the negative carries through. We're going to bring everything over. So it's x plus 4y negative 12. And this comes over plus 3. So that'd be negative 9 is equal to 0. And there we have our equation in general form. So what I meant earlier is if you wanted an equation of a line that's perpendicular to the one that's formed between these 2 points, then you would have to find the negative reciprocal, which would be 4, and you plug that in here and just proceed the same way, picking one of these points. And obviously, that would be a different answer, right? All right, so 5 is an interesting one. It says, I'm going to just put it up here for now, right? Solve the missing value for the linear points of h, j, k. So what they're saying is that these are 3 points that are found on the line. Not necessarily consecutive, they could be anywhere on that line, right? If you think of a long line, it could be one down here, one close by, and one way up here. It could be, you don't know. But what we do know is that if they're in the same line, then it doesn't matter which 2 points I would be using, I would end up with the same slope, right? I would, after I reduce everything, the slope between point this and this and point here and here, right? JK or HK, they should all be the same. So what I'm going to do is, it's basically asking us for that unknown value. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to pick these 2 points that I know both coordinates for, and I'm going to find a slope between those two, and then use that slope to help me find that missing value of b. Okay, so I'm going to find slope of jk, okay, which is, I'm calling k my y2, right? So y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. So that would end up being 1 over negative 5. Or I like to always have the negative float up. Okay, no reduction necessary. So that is the slope, not only between j and k, that's the slope of the line. Slope of the line that goes through. Right? Because it's a linear situation relation here, and you found the slope between these 2 points that are on that line, and that third point is also on that line, and we know that the slope is always the same. It has to be consistent, right? Or else it ceases to be a straight line. So we're going to use this slope. We're going to say that the slope between, and H is my point now that I want to involve, and you can call it Hj or Hk. It's up to you. I'm going to call it Hj, right? And that's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And I'm going to write them down, right? Because point H is B 10, and in this case J is 7, 0. Okay, so I'm going to call this x1, y1, and this is going to be x2, y2. Okay, and so what is this going to be? This slope between these 2 points that I picked is going to be the same as the first 2 points that I've picked because they're on the same line. So I'm just going to take that and substitute that in there. So it's going to be -1 over 5 is equal to y2 is 0 minus y1 is 10, and you have x2, which is 7, minus x1, which is for us is b. Okay, so you have a partially solved, except for you need to know b here. So let's simplify that a little bit. That'd be -1 over 5 is equal to -10 over 7 minus b. All right, so what needs to happen here, this point you cross multiply and divide. So you would go, this multiplies that, so you'd have -1 times 7 minus b, and on the other side you'd have 5 times -10. So this ends up, if you distribute that, you get -7 plus b, and on this side you have -50. Okay, so you add 7 to both sides, so b would be, or the 7 comes over adding, so that'd be -43. So b is -43, or the point would be -4310, so to speak. So this is one way of doing that. The other way is using the same method. You find a slope, okay, and then you say, well, this is method 2. What if you knew the slope? The slope would be -1 over 5, and you choose point H, which is B 10. And you're like, wait a minute, I don't know B. That's fine. So you would use the slope point form. Y minus 10 is equal to -1/5 x minus b. And then you have y minus, sorry, at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply everything by 5. And you're going to get 5y is equal 5y minus 50, and that is equal to, these two cancel, so you end up with -x plus b. And in this case, and at this point, you're wondering what's happening. I still have a y and an x. How am I ever going to solve for b, right? Well, you still have another point, which is 7, 0. J is 7, 0, which is on the line. So you plug that in there, right? 0 for y, so that's 5 times 0 minus 50 is equal to -7 plus b, because 7 goes in there. And then this ends up being 0, so it's -50 is equal to negative 7 plus b. You bring the 7 over to the other side, adding, so it's negative 43, same answer. So if this was a little too complicated for you, just leave it. And this is this would be a 2 or 3 mark question because there's a lot involved. All right. 6. Determine the slope of any line that is parallel to 8x, right? Parallel to 8x plus 7y minus 5 is equal to 0. So this is in general form. Well, we know that the slope of this line would be negative a over b. Okay. And so that would be, in this case, negative 8 over 7, because this is a, b, and c, right? So that's the slope of this line. And we were asking of determine the slope of any line, right, that is parallel. So they just ask for a slope, not an equation. So then we're done there, right? This slope would be parallel to this equation right here. And then B, a line that would be perpendicular, a slope that would be perpendicular, which would be 7 over 8 positive, right? You flip it and you change the sign. There we go. And then 7, this would be a line that's perpendicular, and this would be a slope that's parallel. Slope that's perpendicular, slope that's parallel. And 7, determine the triangle with the following points if the triangle with the following points is isosceles, scalene, or equilateral. Right, so we're going to omit 7 and then do 8 instead. So that's handwritten in your notes. So 8 is asking whether the resulting triangle of these 3 vertices, these 3 points, these 3 corners, actually make up a right triangle or not. Okay, so our goal here is going to be because you got to imagine these are 3 points somewhere on the coordinate plane, right? So we're going to, if you think of A, B, and C like this, you're going to find the slope of AB, the slope of BC, and the slope of AC, right? All 3 of them. And then we're going to look at whether or not any 2 of them are negative reciprocal of each other. Okay, so my first goal is going to step is going to be finding AB. So you have to, if it says show algebra or do it algebraically, this is what we mean. So this would be y2 minus y1, right? x2 minus x1, and so that would end up being negative 6 over negative 10. And that would be positive because negative and negative go positive. 2 goes in here 3 times, it goes in there 5 times, so it's just 3 over 5. Okay, that's slope of AB. Slope of AC, right, is going to be 12 minus 2 and 1 minus 7. And that is 10 over negative 6. That would be negative, right? Negative floats up. 2 goes in here 5 times. 2 goes in there 3 times. So it's negative 5 over 3. We're going to go ahead and just do it for BC as well. Slope of BC would be 12 minus negative 4 and 1 minus negative 3. And so that would be 12 plus 4, essentially, that would be 16. 1 plus 3 would be 4, and that's just 4. So you could already have stopped here, right? These are negative reciprocal. Okay. All right, so 1.2, so we're at 4b, and I'm giving j negative 3, 3,